Hello there and welcome to another episode of Keep and Destroy. This is your host Adam Luff. This is the Gerry Anderson podcast where I interview his fans and ask a tough question. What 5 do they want to keep and what 5 do they want to destroy? And for this week, I'd like to welcome Abbie Svenson to the show. Welcome, Abbie.
Hello, Adam. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So, how did you become involved in the world of Gerry Anderson?
Really, my journey with Anderson started when I was little. So my dad watched the 90s reruns and I just kind of tagged along for the ride there. I kind of went dormant for a little bit. I found that people were, usual bullying. It's not cool to like Anderson, went dormant. And then I found the podcast group and it's reignited my love of Anderson, I think.
Yes, you've made quite an impact with the podcast group, organising things such as quizzes and fanzines. What inspired you to do those?
Well, I like to be very busy in my life and I like to do things for other people as well, like organising things. And somebody mentioned, like with the quiz, for example, it'd be great if we had one. So kind of made it happen. The fanzine as well. I wanted to create something like a newsletter for the group. It just happened.
I've also seen that you do a lot of cosplay as well. Would you like to list the characters that you've done so far?
Yeah, okay. So the first one that I did, I tried to do Captain Blue, which wasn't a very good cosplay, but it was kind of thrown together for Fab Worlds back in 2019. Then I moved up to doing Lady Penelope. Sometimes she'll pop up in various groups and do streams and videos for children, read stories and help them to count, things like that. I did Empathy Angel. She was very popular and probably one of my favourites, actually. It's probably one of the best ones I've done. I did also do Torchy the Battery Boy. It's a lot of fun to produce. I just do it for the fun, really.
Right, now it's time for Abbie to list what she would like to keep. So what's your first thing that you would like, Abbie?
My first one would be Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, Lunaville 7, which it's probably one of my most favourite episodes. I have actually got a hamster that's named after one of the main characters it features, Orson.
You don't shout at Orson, do you?
Good night, Orson!
No, I try not to. He does get some rather funny nicknames, but we never shout at him, no. In the episode, there's a few scenes that really stand out for me, watching the moon reveal. It is quite relaxing, watching it jump up and down. And
It's interesting, when they made UFO, they have these vehicles also called moonmobiles, and it's the exact same design, but they don't hop, they just glide along.
It's another Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, White as Snow. Colonel White is just on fine form, just throughout the episode. It's unbelievable sass. There's a submarine that submerges, and there's a guy who gets his foot caught in a chain, and he essentially drowns. It's very cleverly done. You've got the horror of it, and then Captain Scarlet sneaks on board and locks him in a wardrobe in his pajamas, and and also you can't beat the bluster at the end where it's like, it's not in all my 4 years, and where he's saying the man's dead. That's no excuse.
Yeah, because he can't give away the secret that he's indestructible to people that aren't members of Spectrum, but he nearly did as well. He sort of had to rein himself back in.
Yeah, and he's still there blustering and he's so annoyed, but he's like trying to, keep integrity, and it's just a brilliant episode for that. And obviously there's a soundtrack as well, White as Snow.
After that episode, they released it on vinyl, but it was slightly different. It was faster paced and jazzy. And then they used that particular version in the Secret Service for a couple of episodes as well.
Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, and it's Big Ben Strikes Again.
Or Captain Scarlet Strikes Again. Jesus, 3 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, Captain Scarlet strikes a lot on my list. Personally, for me, it's the plot line. It's just so clever when they come to the end of it and it's Big Ben chiming 13 times.
Yeah, somebody actually had a go at it. Someone uploaded a video on YouTube of him actually testing it. If I can find it, I'll put the link in the description.
It's interesting to see that actually the theory behind it is real and they've tested it, so that's kind of nice. It is quite a heavy episode, but I think the intelligence behind the plot lines and things, that's what brings it to me as a favourite episode, really.
One thing that always sticks out for me is the cinematography. There's something about the first 4 episodes that just have this aesthetic compared to the rest of the show. Say, for example, the alleyway scene with Captain Black lurking in the darkness, the scene where Captain Scarlet returns to Cloud Base and there's the sunrise. in the window. Nice colour palette. I think it was lost really later on in the show. I kind of wish they'd have kept that just a little bit longer. Right, 3 Captain Scarlets. Are we going to get a 4th Captain Scarlet?
Well, I think this one, I'm going to let another series have a bit of glory. So Stingray, Man from the Navy.
Pretty good episode.
It's a cracking episode, if not for the sole reason of Troy having to compete for the affections of the women, because he's not had to compete really so far.
Well, there was Johnny Swinara, who was a couple of episodes earlier in Stand By for Action. But on the other hand, Jacques is another Aquanaut, so there's a little bit more of a connection to Troy in that regard.
And they brought in a lot of emotion in the episode as well, so not just the romantic and the love side of things, but you had things like Marina holding a dinner party that was trashed because the boys were arguing.
Well, we're going back to humour as well, like in that dinner party scene. One of my favourite bits is when Jacques compliments Atlanta's dress and then she said it was new.
I was wondering when someone would notice.
But is that also one of the times we see like a specific face on the puppet? I might be getting that wrong.
In Stingray, it was the first series to have interchangeable heads, so that angry Troy face is used quite a lot in the show, really. However, the angry Atlanta face, which is in that scene, isn't used that often. In fact, it is the only episode you ever see that. And one other thing, you're known for loving Titan and a certain word, but I do have to ask, where does the origin of glorious come from? Because to my knowledge, he says it in Countdown, and I don't know any other time when he ever said it. So it was never like a catchphrase. So what is it about the word glorious?
I think it's X20. I believe he says it sometimes. And the way that Titan speaks is so over the top. It just kind of links the two, and it's like he's glorious, arms flailing everywhere, head back, for somebody who's supposed to be so important and pompous. It's just quite a funny image to see that. There's also the link between Teufel, the fish. Somewhere along the way, I've got talking about trifles, and instead of glorious trifle, it's glorious Teufel. So
he did disappear after 3 episodes. He's only in episodes 1, 2, and 7, and he's vanished from the rest of the show. So times were hard for Titan, so he had to eat his own god.
I know, right? Could you imagine? Well, he keeps him in a fish tank, though. You'd think for a god he'd have him in a more revered, sort of glorious fish tank, but there you go. So my last choice is probably nobody's favourite, but it's mine. It is Torchy the Battery Boy and Pom Pom and the Toys. Torchy as a whole appeals to me. It's very cute. I actually love the idea of, you've got Torchy who's been created by this man. Toys have all been taken off to topsy-turvy land because the children haven't looked after them and have been naughty. They've tied them to kites.
The most devastating thing that you could possibly do. It's not like you're strapping him to fireworks or something, but...
I just thought the whole thing was really cute. And when you look at it in its proper context, it is a fantastic series. It's just mind-blowing for me. Like, at the time, it just, it's fantastic.
I personally don't like the show. Very silly, twee nonsense. It's just, I've never considered them a Gerry Anderson show. I know he directed them, but he was never the creative force behind them. They were Roberta Lee shows. Have you seen any of her other shows?
Yeah, I've actually got a lot of respect for Roberta Lee, breaking into things as she did. I've not watched too much of her stuff. I have watched a couple of episodes of Space Patrol.
Try watching all 39. It's an absolute bore.
I mean, that isn't a show that I'd probably sit down and watch too much. But again, I can see the charm in it. So, yeah, she does a lot of good work.
Nonsense!
So now we'll move on to the destroy list. So what is it that you want to destroy first, Abbie?
Well, Adam, it might actually surprise you to hear that my first destroy is Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons attack on Cloud Base.
Oh, no.
I think the whole premise of it, the actual attack and, the subsequent downfall of Cloud Base, I think that could have been a viable plotline for the end of the series, like just completely end it on that. But they didn't end it on that. It was a dream episode. And well, it just doesn't work, especially as you've only got like 1 or 2 episodes after it and then the whole series ends.
It's one episode, actually. It's the Inquisition, which is a flashback episode. Although I do like the Inquisition, but not as a finale.
I think if Attack on Cloud Base had been the finish, it would have been a grim finish. It wouldn't have ended on good terms at all, but it would have tied things together a lot better than Inquisition did.
I agree.
It was just a badly placed episode. They do some fantastic puppet work in it, but Colonel White stood there saluting, spinning around. It was just a bit ridiculous.
Although one thing I do like is the characterization of certain characters, like how Captain Blue is so desperate to rescue Symphony because of their love interest, which are hinted at a couple of times in the show, and Colonel White, who's pretty much stressed out beyond all belief. He doesn't show it too much, but there's little moments where he's sort of breaking up, like when he's trying to avoid Captain Magenta.
Yeah, good old Captain Magenta. Yeah, I think that the love interest was interesting, but I thought it was too little too late. I think if they were going to develop that or bring that up, they should have done it much earlier.
They do bring it up in Manhunt, but that's episode 4, so it's almost like 2 bookends, really. One at the very beginning and one at the very end. There wasn't anything in between. And then in The Trap, it's both Captain Scarlet and Symphony that get chained up in the dungeon, and it's not like Captain Blue's desperate to go rescue her there, so I see what you mean.
Number 2 on my destroy list is Stingray, Raptures of the Deep. Specifically, when Troy starts to sing.
Oh, get lost.
It just didn't sit well with me, even though, again, it's a dream episode. I thought it was just wholly unnecessary, really.
I quite like the episode myself, although I don't like the musical part at all. It's just, I don't like musicals in general. I actually would have preferred it if they'd have rewrote it and actually had the dream be Phones becoming king, because it would have been interesting to see how he would have coped with all the power going to his head. Although, of course, I don't think him singing about Marina would have made any sense, so there's a good excuse to get rid of that.
Actually, that would have been quite interesting to see how Phones coped with it, because Phones is always sort of the underdog. And then the aquamphibian at the window, nobody seems to notice there's an aquamphibian stood there.
I love that shot. You're not going to be looking in the background because naturally you're going to be looking at Troy, who's in the foreground speaking.
It's like everything's not safe anymore, and, you know, Troy, you're in danger. What are you going to do? Terrorhawks, 2 for the price of 1. Basically, it's the android giving birth in this one. The whole plot centres around this child coming into the world. I think there's good and bad points to this episode, but it was just... I mean, it was originally banned, or it wasn't aired at some point.
No, not quite. It was transmitted, but what they did was they actually cut out the whole bit where Zelda is jamming the crowbar.
Stand by.
Because I actually watched the episode that was transmitted, because I was part of the tape trading circuits back in the day, and I was able to get the Terrorhawks episodes that hadn't been released at that point. For a while, I did not know there was anything to do with the crowbar until it was released on DVD.
And also, when the baby comes out, it's not finished. Like, there's a plate missing because it's an android baby. I don't know if that was some sort of subtle hint to premature babies or birth defects, but it wasn't done in the right way, I don't think. And it was just a very weird episode, and one I don't want to watch again. Space Precinct Enforcer. I don't fully remember too much of the episode because it started to get quite intense for me. I work in the field of, I assist refugees, children, families, and the episode centres around a young orphan that's basically adopted or abducted by this alien. It just felt too close to home. The way that the character was dressed, it was almost like they were kind of sexing her up. And yes, that might happen in, you know, gang circuits and things, but there was too much emotion there of this girl who was abducted. I can't remember if she was reunited with her parents. I believe she was reunited with the species at least at the end, if not her parents.
It ends basically where they find where her parents are, and then she leaves to go visit them. So it's a happy ending technically, but it's just not on screen.
Space 1999, and it is Earthbound. There are particular scenes in it, again, that are a bit too much for me to watch, because I'm quite sensitive. The episode features heavily this character called Simmons. It centres around him, and then you've got these aliens that they come in. Christopher Lee, he's very tall, beautiful, with his long flaxen locks.
I don't know if you've seen this episode, but the aliens are very reminiscent of the Membrunos from the Fireball XL5 episode, The Doomed Planet.
The bit that scares me and terrifies me is Simmons, for some reason, seals himself in the pod. And obviously the Caldorians, they synchronise themselves to the Matrix, which is essential. But then, is it about 2 hours later? He wakes up in his coffin. So basically Simmons is destined for this slow, arduous death in this stasis chamber, which is his fault.
If you're trapped somewhere where you don't want to be, like Moonbase Alpha, how desperate are you just to get your own way? I don't want to say he was justified, but if I was in that situation, I don't know if I could take the moral high ground. I might end up doing something similar myself.
Yeah, it brings that question, doesn't it? Because technically you are in extraordinary circumstances, so normal law and order wouldn't necessarily apply.
One of my favourite scenes, and it's a great form of visual storytelling. Xantor is giving the Alphans a token of peace, which look like Easter eggs, and he gives one to Simmons. And then at the end of the scene, when John Koenig asks what he thinks about the Caldorians, Simmons just tosses the Easter egg. It's just a great way of showing how he does not care. They're just a means to an end. All right, then, that's it for Abbie's Keep and Destroy. How do you feel about all your choices?
I think I'm happy with my list. It was interesting to actually think about them critically and think there are actually good points in the episodes that even I don't like. I think everyone's lists will be different, and it was just fun to look at it. So thanks for giving me the space and opportunity to look at it, Adam.
You're welcome, but I have one thing before you go. I challenge you to make a Spirilla cosplay.
Ah. I mean, I did Torchy. Anything's possible. I'll have a go.
Thank you once again, Abbie, for taking part in this video, and thank you, the audience, for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like the series to continue, please donate to me on Buy Me a Coffee or GoFundMe. The links are in the description. This is Adam Luff, signing out.